All right. Okay. Yeah. Good job, Google, for that disconnect. um, wow. Yeah. Let me. You know what? Let me send out the updated link so that our couple of viewers here can get back on.
And there we are.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thank you. What happened?
Um, Google Plus decided let's install this extension from a third party that spams the hell out of your page and closes your browser for you. So that's what it did. Um, and I am going to. So I had to restart my computer and reboot the whole thingy.
Aha.
The whole thingy.
Yeah, I tried to keep it going for a little while, but I ran out of things to talk about.
Well, I appreciate that. All right. So let me post the new link here. Where'd the thing go?
I didn't move it.
There we go. All right. So that is. We're back up and running. I hope people can find this. If not, that's okay. We're just going to paint anyway. Because why not? Because it is a painting show, technically.
And the painting needs to happen.
The painting must continue.
So, speaking of painting, since we're talking about that, you've got a lot of white to paint. What kind of things do you think about when you're painting white? How do you do it? How do you base it? What considerations do you make? That sort of thing.
Oh, well, I kind of follow the school of two different kinds of white. Okay, and this is, I guess some people call it cool whites and warm whites. Some people call it clean white and dirty white. We'll just, for our discussion here, we'll call it cool white and warm white. And this guy here is kind of a classic example of that. So I've got, for example, Samuel here. He, in the artwork, he's all white, right? He's entirely white. And what I could have done is I could have taken one, say one mode of white, either cool or warm, and done the entire model that way. Which would have been fine, and I think the art kind of reflects that. But instead, what I decided to do was, let's do a warm white on his body, and then a cool white on the hair and the clothing, or the whatever this is called, the toga wrap around him. So the main difference for me is what color the base coat is going to be for the whites. So in this example, for the warm white of his flesh, I'm using Vallejo Iraqi sand, and then for the base coat of all of the cloth and the hair, my base coat is Vallejo Azure, and then from there it's essentially the same. I take Azure and start blending white into it, and just start doing layer after layer until I'm all the way back to white. Or in the case of the flesh, what I do is I do Iraqi sand, and I start adding off-white to it until I'm all the way back up to off-white. So it's pretty simple, straightforward method I'm using. It's just it's a bit time consuming, and so a lot of people don't like to do it. What about yourself, Phil? What's your approach to white?
I like to do pretty much the same thing. I go with a general temperament, whether I want it to be warm or cold. And what I tend to do is I use a gray as my kind of a neutral white. In fact, that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing with this fellow right here from Eldorado. His tunic up there. I painted his apron in a bone color and his tunic in a neutral gray from Vallejo. But I'm going to build that up to a white. I may do a wash before I build it all the way up to white just to deepen the shadows a little bit, but probably not on the apron since I want that just to be a straight, normal, softer white. Um, but yeah, I do pretty much the same thing, just a couple of layers built up, and it tends to give a lot of character to whatever I'm framing it in.
So how many layers would you say you do for your white?
Not nearly enough.
Not nearly enough. That's what it
Probably.
feels like to me when I do
I,
this.
I think I do. Well, on that guy, I'll probably do the gray. I might do a light gray and then a final highlight of white, so probably three.
Okay.
Four
That's
if I
not
add a
bad.
wash. But I found that when you have the grays like that, you can kind of blend them back and forth, especially if you paint quickly. You can go and add them and just kind of blend them as you go on the model itself, rather than just mixing new colors in your palette and then applying it after that.
Okay.
So
Are you a fan of painting a lot of white, or is it just sort of when you have to, you break it out?
it's well, I cut my teeth in the grimdark, so most of my stuff tends to have a pretty dark tone to it in general.
Hmm.
I don't like to go to pure white all the time, but I found that on certain things it can make a model really stand out.
Yep.
Um, but I usually only use it on the ends of horns, on reflections and gems, um, and only on highlights. I don't tend to do things in pure white.
Okay. Yeah, I try not to, but sometimes I do go a lot of white. And like for example, so here's the warm white and the cool white that we were talking about. But on these guys, I went kind of like an electric blue white. So started off with more of a sky blue, and you can see you'll probably be able to make this guy out better. But you can see it's the blue is almost kind of glowing off of that, and it's a pretty powerful blue. When you're looking at the model, you can see that it's white, but the blue is really strong, even though it's just kind of sitting in the crevices there. Whereas here, the blue is there, but it's a lot softer. And they're both cool whites, but that one, the one on the SDE model, is almost like an electric white. You can call it electrified white, I guess.
Which kind of begs the question. I don't see you doing washes very often, do you?
I do washes when I do for a couple things. Mainly, it will be an early part of the flesh tones. I'll put a
Okay.
wash in, but then I'll spend the rest of the time layering and highlighting. Um, and then if I'm speed painting, I will actually lean a lot more on the washes. But for something like this model, which is this is a fantastic sculpt. It's a pretty 2D sculpt because you can looking down the side here, he's pretty flat as a pancake. But I mean, it is fantastic. The level of detail on it is great, and there's lots of smooth areas, some nice arcing, a lot of energy in a 2D model. But something like this, where I'm carefully blending white, I feel that a wash would kind of, to me, might actually kind of muddy up the uh, I guess the subtlety of the blends that I'm working here. So I don't want to wash in there, screwing that up. That said, washes most of the time are used to kind of tone down highlights. So if your highlights are going too far away from your base color, then a lot of times you'll use a wash to kind of bring everything back, reunify that color.
I can see that. Well,
Um,
not to mention the fact that, I mean, that model in particular, um, yeah, he's an angel. He's a fallen angel, so they're supposed to be luminous. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to tone them down too much.
Mm-hmm. This
So
is basically the same exact color scheme I used on my Azalea model. So when these are together, um, her robe and this guy's toga should look basically the same.
add a lot of continuity to the Force. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, it's one of those things that sometimes people think about, sometimes they don't. I don't know. It's making a coherent, cohesive force, whether it's by a shared color throughout or a similar color scheme. Have you noticed lately that people are tending to paint more individuals rather than a cohesive unit, or has that not been an issue, or what?
Uh, I think it depends on the game and the particular force. Like for Eldorado, um, like if people are painting up their Westerners, they try to keep all the Westerners the same, or at least in the same type of uniform. Um, Whereas if they're painting Lost, then they'll use a bunch of different colors. Um, so I don't know. I think it depends almost on the painter and whatever force is being painted. Um, Sometimes it's really cool for people to limit their color palette and like really put together something cohesive. Um, but it's also kind of cool for like SDE stuff when your color palette is basically the entire rainbow, and
That's
uh,
true.
and you can just go wild with the kind of colors you're going to use.
That is a fun set to paint. Not only that, but all the expansions too. I mean, I've seen online like the Caverns of Rockstar, the Rock Top Gang, the turtles. I've seen them painted up like Koopas from Super
Hmm.
Mario Brothers, and they look great. So everything's valid in that.
Yeah, I love SDE and Relic Knights for the sheer kind of bold color palettes you can get away with painting those, and I find that to be super fun. Um, I've never really been great at painting dark color schemes, so the grimdark stuff, it just I don't know. I don't really. I guess I don't naturally take to painting that kind of stuff. So this guy here is going to lead a whole basically a whole force of what are they called? Infernal Horde. So his force will be all pretty much fleshy colored, while he'll look, white and angelic.
Well, it's interesting too because I've seen that done several ways too. I mean, your Infernal Horde tends to be flesh colored. I've seen them also done in everything from a dull magma red to a bright cherry red.
Yeah, if you've seen Hadrian's um, his Eldorado demons, they're all very like a brick red almost,
Yeah,
which is pretty
and
cool.
because they're all the same, they're really really sharp.
Hmm.
That and they're well painted, of course. I'm just don't want to leave that part out. But
Yeah, so I'm hoping it looks pretty cool with this officer that is kind of ethereal looking, and then all the demons themselves are real visceral. You know, kind of that. I'm gonna go for kind of a sunburn flesh appearance for them.
very cool.
So, yeah. Um, and I'll move over to this guy here because I'm on that yellow ochre color. So great time to move back to the paladin, who I actually haven't been paying any attention to tonight. Been painting all fallen angel Samael there.
But it's worth mentioning. I was hanging out in San Diego last weekend, and I went over to my buddy Dan's house, and he's painting up a Tau Epic Army,
Okay.
and he's been working on this for a while, and he's my friend. I've been friends with him for years. He's a great guy, but sometimes he kind of balks a little bit at painting.
Okay.
Um, and for you viewer out there that
Viewer.
doesn't enjoy painting, or you're nervous about a certain step. I mean, the thing that I told him holds true to everything. I mean, it's just paint. You can either strip it or you can paint over it. It's not the end of the world if you make a mistake or whatever. You got to experiment and play with things. And if you're absolutely not sure, you just pick up a spare model and you practice on that.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that does come in extremely handy that I had to try and communicate to him was the fact that it was basic color theory, and you can't really go wrong with a rudimentary understanding of how that all works. He had a solid ochre tank washed with I think was Devlin mud or Agrax Earthshade or whatever the
Whatever
color.
it's called these days. Sure.
What's that?
Or
Yeah,
whatever it's called these days.
yeah, basically an umber shade of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you're using Army Painter, then it's strong tone.
Yep.
But he had stopped there with his tanks, and so I asked him, do you want your tanks lighter or darker than they are now? Because he wasn't entirely happy. He said lighter, so I said, okay, then you need to paint the turrets a bone color, highlight it with white, and then have some spot color to draw your eye around.
Yeah.
And he didn't quite understand what I meant, so I had to break it out and sit down with his paints and show him. But you can't be afraid to experiment, and remember that if you have an overarching color scheme on your model and you want to lighten it up, add a bigger, lighter shade. But you need a couple of spot colors to separate it. But you know that you don't really mix green and red, because that just muddies up the entire image. You don't mix all sorts of strange combinations. I don't know. It's hard for me to explain because I've been doing it for so long that it comes pretty natural. I just buy a color wheel.
Yeah, you kind of have your own internal understanding of what colors to combo with what other colors.
Exactly, and you can get away with strange colors from time to time. Like on my Amazon team, I'm giving them all punk hair colors. So some of them have pink hair, some of them have electric blue hair, some of them have green hair. But that's going to be the only real departure from the overall scheme, which is kind of the turquoise uniform.
Mm-hmm.
And the skin tone, whether it's white or black or anything in between, is going to be irrelevant when compared to the overall theme of the force. So it's I don't know. And if it looks like crap at the end, well, hell, at least I tried, and I can repaint it.
But yeah, I mean, I still maintain that the worst painted model still looks better than the best unpainted model.
Oh, absolutely.
That's my own. Yeah, I understand. That is my own bias there.
Well, and as we all know, the unpainted models die first.
Yes. Or they should, anyway.
So
yeah, this is. I'm going to do my rudimentary, what I call rudimentary NMM, which is this yellow ochre base for the gold, and then I'm going to do like a steel. What happened to my camera?
I don't know. Is it still working?
Oh, there it goes. It just kicked back on. How weird. Yeah, I'm still here.
I think I mean, granted, this ramble has been brought to you by the fine makers of Newcastle, but the point I was trying to make is that I like your stuff in that you have a good understanding of contrasting colors, and your blues and your golds complement each other very, very well. That, and I'm navy, so blue and gold has a
Oh,
So,
thanks.
strong place in my heart. But but no, it's sharp and it pops and it's brighter than I do than I'm comfortable doing. But it's very very effective. And for the type of games that we're playing, Anima and Super Dungeon Explorer, it's very very fitting. So.
Thanks.
It's interesting to see your departure from the bright colors in Eldorado with the fleshy tones and things like that. It's fun watching that transpire.
Yeah, I have a bunch of a lot more Infernal Horde to paint up at some point, and my plan is to just stick with that weird fleshy color on all of them, and just handle it that way. But yeah, thanks. I mean, I have fun. I think that's like honestly probably my biggest reason for signing up for Ninja was the fact that I loved painting every single game that they included. So
Oh,
that was not a difficult sell for me.
you asked about my gaming activity in the last week or so. I forgot to mention that I played Love Letter with my sister, my fiance, and my mom.
Okay, how did that go?
It went pretty well, although I had the princess in my hand a disturbing number of times. Uh, it was a fun game. I ended up winning, but I think everybody had a good time. It was they sell the game everywhere. If you haven't played it, it takes about 20-30 minutes. It's stupid easy, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's one of those games that even if you don't consider yourself to be a gamer or a tabletop person or a board gamer, you'll play it anyways because it's just that simple to pick up and it's so quick. So
yeah, and it was a lot of fun. It was Bartley and Marty showed me, and I love the fact that you have one card in your hand, you draw one, you pick one to play, you follow what it says on the card, and you're done.
Yep. Yeah, I keep that game in my back pocket most of the time for if we have 30 minutes to kill and 4 people sitting around, we'll just do that.
Absolutely. It's only $10. It's not going to break the bank.
So, would you say are you like on? Do you still kind of have the hope of getting Faith into some more gaming? Is this like are you deliberately trying to get her to play a few more games, or was this just sort of a hey, let's play it because we've got it type thing?
Actually, well, to be perfectly honest, originally I thought that the Game 10, the finals, was going to be at Comic Quest this weekend.
Okay.
And so I kind of planned to stop by on Saturday to drop off some models for Jake on our way south for Mother's Day. That all evaporated due to situations outside everybody's control, but it was still a convenient halfway point, so we stopped off anyways. And Faith was the one that eyeballed it.
Okay.
So I had played it, but she was the one that had picked it up and expressed an interest in it. So I said, okay, let's get it. And I got that and a couple of paints, which I forgot in San Diego. And then we were back on the road.
Okay. That's cool. So she that kind of caught her eye.
Yep. She got the deluxe velvet bag version.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
My wife, I taught her how to play Love Letter, and she enjoyed it. And my wife hates pretty much all games except for Cards Against Humanity.
Well, so, that's the best game ever. So.
Yeah. She doesn't play any game other than that one.
Huh.
So that's cool.
Yeah. No, I'm not holding out hopes that Faith is going to become a gamer like us, but I do really appreciate the fact that, like for Philipalooza, when everybody was over at the house, she participated in games once everything was settling down, and it wasn't so much about the miniatures. It was just about people sitting down and having a good time.
That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, once we found out that Jake was Merlin, it was all over. But yeah, it was but yeah, I mean, I do have to kind of bribe her into playing Super Dungeon Explorer with me, but I'm hoping to get a Zombicide game in soon, and I have actually played a game of Arkham Horror, 3 games in fact, with her, and
Wow.
we didn't want to kill ourselves afterwards, so it was a success in my book.
Yeah, I mean, even for the steadfast gamers, getting them to sit down for a game of Arkham Horror can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, just for the amount of time it takes, you would have to lobby to get me to commit an evening to playing that. But I like, I do love that genre and that theme, so you got that going for you. Now, speaking of which, have you seen or heard of the new series Penny Dreadful?
I have seen billboards for it, but because I don't have regular TV, just the digital receiver, and I don't get Showtime, I can't watch it.
Okay. Well, I have Showtime, at least for the time being, because I haven't had the need to cut it off yet, but I did manage to catch the very first episode of Penny Dreadful. And let me tell you, it's a very interesting show that I'm hoping could really turn into a very good show. First off, it has a really good cast. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with. Well, I guess Ava Green is the main female character in the show, and she's kind of like a preternatural psychic type character.
Okay.
Ava, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She was in, let's see.
She was in the first James Bond, Casino Royale.
Yes, that's right. She was in Casino Royale. She was also in that weird Camelot cable show, which sadly did not do very well, and some other kind of. She's usually in some pretty strange movies, but I'm a big fan. I think she's got a really interesting look, and she's always playing these really interesting characters. So she's in it. Timothy Dalton is in it, who, and I'll be honest, I didn't like him as Bond, but I love Timothy Dalton as an actor. I think he's great. I just didn't think Bond was the right role for him when he played Bond. So he's in it, and he's fantastic. And you've got Josh Hartnett, who is, I guess, a decent actor. I was a little concerned because I had watched some of Bunraku. I don't know if you've ever heard of that movie.
I watched it.
And it seemed like he was the exact same character from Bunraku. So I was like, but, Hartnett's pretty good. So, anyway, my point being, the casting, pretty good for the show. The setting, fantastic. If you love Victorian science fiction, horror, dare I say, steampunk, to upset our friend Craig Cartmel a little bit. So it's got a very strong, and I'm talking strict to the canon stuff, Victorian science fiction plot elements to it, which is good and bad. It's good in that we're all familiar with the storylines, Jack the Ripper and vampires and Frankenstein's monster and Egyptian cultists. We're all very familiar with that, and if you played IHMN or anything like that, every single thing about this show will ring true to you. So that was all really good. But yeah, I am a little worried that with how much we know about Victorian science fiction, that if they don't add other elements that we're not expecting, that it might kind of wallow there, and I hope it doesn't. But But anyway, yeah. So Josh Hartnett is your typical American gunslinger, hired gun type guy, who kind of they hint at him having like a side plot of trying to find Jack the Ripper or something to do with him and Jack. Then you've got Timothy Dalton, who is kind of the leader of the crew. The African explorer. He heads up the Explorers Club, and his quest to save his daughter from the clutches of a vampire. And then you have the Ava Green character, who is like I was saying, a preternatural. So she's one of those people that's like immune to the supernatural stuff, and she does seem to have some like psychic ability to her. And then finally, you have another guy whose name escapes me. He's a brilliant actor who's playing Dr. Frankenstein. So you put all those characters together, and you got this really interesting premise for a show. Will they be able to pull it off? I don't know. I mean, I know that the first episode is really just kind of there to introduce these characters to you and start to draw you superficially into the plot. So it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, overall, I know I'm going to watch it again when the next episode airs this weekend. And I already talked to kind of Craig about it. Just because it's one of those things that seemed to be written for him, so it was fantastic.
Sounds good.
So that's quite a ramble there, I know.
Hey, worse than any of mine.
But no, I thought it was cool. The one thing it did for me, and I'll be honest, was like, oh, I want to play some IHMN right now, and I want to work on a steampunk costume right now. That's what it did for me. So, yeah. So that's going on. I'll be honest, there hasn't been too much gaming for me other than like the Thursday night CQ last week was pretty wild. It was that was there. It was standing room only in there, which was pretty impressive.
That's cool.
And so there were a couple board game groups going on. There was some War Machine going on. I had an SDE game going and a Helldorado demo going right after. So that's been kind of my gaming lately. It's been very difficult for me to get a weekend day now for gaming, and that's kind of the issue I've been struggling with. And with con season, it doesn't get any easier because when I have those weekends reserved for the cons. So yeah. Anyway, that's enough of my bitching.
No, I know what you mean, man. It's hard for me to get time right now. I mean, especially with the wedding coming up, and then just so much stuff with the Navy and the civilian job and the reserves and a lot of holidays and travel down to San Diego limits the time I have for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of my productive season. Really.
Oh, good. Good.
I'm using every opportunity I can to paint, and I hope she's out of earshot when I say this, but when she starts talking, I pick up the paintbrush and I listen. I can focus better on her talking while I'm painting.
Really? That's interesting.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I'd like to get more gaming in, but that's what the cons are for.
Yeah, and I hate to put it that way, but I mean it's a day that I am firmly committed to. So it's easy. It's actually easier for me to try to get some gaming in at cons than it is at the local the weekly event nowadays.
Right.
So I don't know, and once Comic-Con is over, there's really not much left in con season. for us to be preoccupied with. So maybe at that point, I can look at some weekends for just casual gaming. But right now, it's kind of a tough spot. So I was going to ask you, because right now, like the buzz on the ground is, hey, Relic Knights is starting to ship. Are you involved in that game at all right now, or do you have any interest in it?
I am not involved, and the only interest I'd have in it would be to paint some of the minis, which I will admit look great, but I have too many game systems right now as it is.
Yup, I hear that.
I have too much money going towards all sorts of different things, and the last thing I need is one more game system that I need to try and find time for.
Yep. That makes sense, sure.
But I will look forward to seeing you guys play it.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the whole reason why I haven't really committed any serious time towards Warmahordes either. I mean, I have that whole Kriegsarmee from the first edition.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't bothered with it really because I've been busy with other things.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in all reality, you only have a certain number of systems that you can be in on before things just start to catch up with you, and it's actually eating up your capacity to enjoy your games if you're into too many at one time. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, I ran into the same problem with 40K when 40K was pretty much all I was doing, and so I eventually collected all of the armies.
Mm-hmm.
I had everything from Space Marines of Chaos to Necrons and so on and so forth, and I eventually settled on Orcs. But with all of the different systems, I can really only afford, and I'm not just talking money, I'm talking time and
yep. Time and brain space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time and mental real estate to one force per game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's completely unusual for me, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do want to try Relic Knights, a few of us have multiple factions. I'm gonna have, apparently I'm gonna end up with 3 when we get started. So I'll have a few choices for you to just try out. And for me, Relic Knights was the game that I was super looking forward to. And then I played that ill-fated demo at Gen Con by somebody that did not know the game and kind of fell out of interest with the game, but continued to paint models anyways because the models will always have me. So I kind of went into it thinking, you know what, worst case scenario, I love the models, hate the game, I can just use them for another game. So it seemed like a worthwhile thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be adverse to a demo. That's for damn sure.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as getting
and Brandon
involved,
is already kind of reserved his spot for me to paint some of his Relic Knight stuff. So that doesn't hurt either. So I've got built-in commission work headed my way too, which is always a nice thing.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's been really quiet on the viewer side. So we've got a couple of people viewing, but not much comments. Maybe they're painting. What's that?
We probably pissed them all off with the Anime Expo comments.
Yeah, that's what shut down my computer. Apparently, Google got super mad about my AX comment, and they shut me down. But yeah, hopefully our viewers are actually just sitting down and painting and don't feel like looking up and typing a comment in. So that I'm totally cool with that. But so I am right now working on this NMM stuff. I'm working on the blade here, the sword. And all this is really is just a creative way of highlighting your gray to make it look like it's a sword. Make it look metallic. There's no real tricks to this.
I've never been able to figure it out.
It's really just kind of it's your basics of line highlighting, and then you pick some light and dark spots to alternate, and that's really it. I mean, you can do, some guys do the really fancy. They'll do the really fancy, like the little scratch marks and all that, and they'll paint in extra lighting effects. But I'm keeping this guy pretty basic.
Now, what's that guy for? Is he for a demo crew or just...
I guess technically he is a demo. He is part of a demo kit because he is the last piece to complete my second fully painted SDE set. So I guess he is technically part of the demo side. If people need to borrow a Paladin for Arena or anything like that, then I would break out this model. And the Paladin is actually one of my favorite models to paint in that range. So it worked out.
I like his hair, but to be honest, I'm not much of a fan of anything else.
I like his hair, and I do like the armor. I think it's kind of cool. And anytime I get to paint, weird white colors, I will totally be all over that. It's weird, but when I first started painting miniatures, everybody told me stay away from white patterns, stay away from white color schemes because they're a pain and they take forever to paint, and you're not going to enjoy it. And at the time, I didn't know how to pick a good brand of white paint because your brand does matter with regards to white.
True.
And so I hated life. I painted with GW Skull White, which was only good like 25% of the time. The other 75% of the time, it was like trying to paint with chalk. So I hated life, and I played back then. I played High Elves, and I played Eldar, and I played everything that could possibly be painted white in the GW. Oh, even my Space Marine chapter, the Mentors were also white and green. So I painted so much white and screwed up so much white back in the day that I actually ended up preferring to paint things white because of the, just getting used to doing several layers of stuff and getting this, but being rewarded with this really cool looking white white force, because nobody did it. Nobody back then bothered painting all white forces. Not as much anyways. Nowadays, with the modern paints and the foundation paints and all that stuff, you can comfortably paint white on most stuff. Some people still kind of struggle with it, but I think it's a lot easier these days than it used to be.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I remember. If you remember Life Before Washes, that was a trip.
All we had were inks.
I remember when the first washes came out. We're like, what is this? What is this sorcery of this thing called a wash?
My mom tried to catch me burning my brother at the stake. Burn the witch.
But yeah, that was interesting. And so these days, I'll pull up my suspenders and say these kids these days have it way too easy with all their washes and effects paints and all that other stuff that they've got.
Yeah, but at the same time, I don't see kids trying that often. I think that the options are available, but I don't really see a whole lot of young modelers doing that.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's a good point.
Most folks are they're either playing it bare naked or they're all ninja forces.
All
Primer,
Ninja Force.
primer
That's.
black.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I don't know. Like until I met you guys at, strangely enough, a Strategicon event. My gaming group consisted of a couple of buddies from college and my brother and my cousin.
Okay.
And out of all of them, yeah, one guy, my cousin, he's a tournament player. He's competitive.
Okay.
And another guy collected stuff mostly because we all collected it, but he didn't really have anybody else to play against, so he only played against us.
Mm-hmm.
My brother would look for things like dinosaur hunters, which didn't really fit with the Grimdark, but okay. And he's got 20 millimeter Marines for playing things like Ambush Alley, which is a really obscure game system for most gamers. But my buddy Dan converts everything, but has trouble painting. And out of all of them, I'm the one that paints the most, simply because I never really had an opportunity to play against a lot of folks. So I don't know. I forgot where I was going with that, but damn you, Newcastle. Um, but yeah, the washes and everything, it's made things easier. But I don't. I'm kind of set in my ways. I'm not going to go out and buy these effect paints that GW is putting out. I'd rather just accomplish everything with paint, water, and maybe a little bit of spit and luck. Just the way I always have.
Yeah, I hear that. I've heard some good stuff about their effects paints, but I also will not get myself to buy them, mainly because I think what we do is we get used to the effects that we're capable of,
Right.
or we're already familiar with the often simple workarounds. So, you know, to us, effects paints don't really provide much value. Um, and with the washes these days, um, there's actually a lot of good alternatives too for washes. So you don't necessarily need the GW washes, although I still think they're pretty good.
That's true. Well, here's the other thing, though. In our group, we don't tend to have too many people that go up for painting competitions. We mostly have people that paint for tabletop readiness.
Yeah.
Which is a different standard. I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. Our stuff looks pretty damn good, but it's not necessarily going to win a golden demon or a crystal brush or whatever the competition you happen to be entered into.
Right. It's not your display quality, couple 100-hour pieces. This is a miniature that I'm going to paint tonight with the idea that I'm going to be playing it in the next couple of days.
Right. But again, for us, that's kind of the point.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's kind of the point, and I think one of the messages that I try to instill on some gamers is that you can actually, there is a middle ground. You don't have to play 0% painted or only display quality. You can nor do you have to do some like an army that's all army painter and then dry brush. There is a middle ground where you can get models painted to a reasonable standard in a what I call a reasonable or human amount of time. And I think it's totally feasible. I just don't think that message is communicated enough to to new gamers or to people that are discouraged about painting. That said, I don't want to just instill false hope and say that, oh yeah, everybody's going to love painting and everybody should paint. I think that's also kind of myopic too, is to assume that everybody would like painting. I'm just saying that I think more people would like painting than currently.
And I think that if you've never painted, which admittedly probably isn't this target audience, but for example, my sister is not a gamer per se, and she's probably the furthest thing from it. She gets frustrated in anything more complicated than Love Letter. But I got her painting Gretchen, and she was actually pretty good at it. This is from second edition 40K.
Oh, I remember those, Gretchen. Yeah, those are like the best models to start painting.
Exactly. And she painted them well, and she had fun doing it. And I think that if I had capitalized on that, I could have turned her into a great model painter, because she seemed to really enjoy it and was looking forward to doing more. But then we got away from orcs and never touched those Gretchen again.
Well, that's kind of another point too, right? That the idea that painting the model is also can also be regarded as part of the entertainment of owning that model.
That's true.
And I think that message can be overlooked when people are focused in on game mechanics, or is this model worth buying from a mechanic standpoint. Sometimes a model's value is in the painting of it, and whatever it does on the table after that is kind of secondary. At least that's how I've approached some of the models that I bought. Was that okay? Don't really care if it's a good model or not. It's a fun model to paint, and I want to paint it, and I'll worry about its usefulness after that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still have Rackham models from Confrontation. Back before I tried to read the rulebook and failed after about page 2. Yeah, it's just so complicated, and it didn't make any sense, and I couldn't find anybody to play, but the models were gorgeous. And I still have a bunch of them, and I am looking forward to the day when I don't have any other things to paint, and I can get back to them and paint in peace and quiet.
Yeah, I painted I painted the metal Relic Knights minis, knowing that they were nowhere near a game at the time, because I wanted to. Just because buying that miniature and painting it was providing value for me, and to discourage somebody new to the hobby from painting could potentially be robbing them of that kind of joy that I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
So I hope this doesn't come off preachy, and it probably is coming off preachy, but I feel like when we tell people, oh, it's okay, you don't have to paint your stuff, I almost feel like we're saying, well, you don't need the opportunity to possibly enjoy that part of the hobby. And I think we could be turning away some people who might otherwise be, like your sister, might otherwise be people that might really enjoy painting, and that could lead to them kind of delving a little deeper into the hobby.
Absolutely.
I'm just making you feel guilty about switching armies and leading your sister astray there.
Well, well.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But yeah, looks like Samuel is almost done here. He's coming along. I think on your screen he probably doesn't look like anything right now.
No, I can see the shading. I mean, he looks good.
He just kind of looks like a white. He's probably washed out with this gray background behind him.
Sounds like we got a comment.
Oh, yeah, it might be. Let's see. I'll refresh the page here. All right, this is it's Richard. I was summoned here by the sound of people talking about AX. What I miss? I
Ah,
don't think you missed anything, Richard. I think we kind of covered it maybe 4 or 5 shows ago. But yeah, it did. At some point, the conversation did kind of fall back on the 75-pound dudes in tidy whities. So I will leave it at that, though.
yeah,
That's the end of that. I think we hit the end of that topic.
yeah, I think so too.
But yeah, so but yeah, I was talking to Ross about this today that part of outreach to the non-gamers could be this idea of, hey, we could get you started. You could try out painting, and maybe a joy of painting would be your gateway drug instead of the old uh, you know the old demo. Maybe you like the model. Maybe you see a guy painting it, and maybe that's what draws you in. In fact, my brother and I were originally drawn to tabletop gaming because we were painting our Ral Partha D&D models before,
And so was I.
and that was that was a fun hobby, and we loved doing it. And one day my brother found a Games Workshop catalog that had these models in it, which, compared to what we saw from Ral Partha, were unlike anything we'd ever seen before. And so he brought some of those home, and we started painting them. And the fact that it was a game, a playable game, was kind of just gravy on top of that. So is that the same for you? You also started painting your D&D models before.
Yeah, I actually I can probably pinpoint it to one artist. Tony Dieterlizzi was the artist behind the Planescape um setting in D&D when it first came out,
Okay.
and the books were fantastic and the art was incredible. And so I bought some of the Ral Partha Planescape models and started painting those up. And I kind of scoffed at first at the GW that I found because all they had was fantasy models, and I was like, why would you want to paint 40 of the same thing? It didn't make any sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But then in college, I ended up going back to a store and getting a demo and seeing the appeal. So it was, I have a cat interested in my paintbrush. Um, I had a lot more interest in it at that point. It was a few years later, but yeah, same thing.
So are you still interested in painting 40 of the same model, or?
Um, yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mind it, but I've learned to temper my painting with breaks and different units and painting several things at the same time, so I don't get as burned out as I used to.
Sure.
So it's a little different now, but yeah, I don't mind it per se.
Okay. Cool.
I am accepting commissions. Plug.
Nice. I'm telling you, when we probably, I'm expecting to see some Relic Knights commissions come in when that stuff finally ships. So probably, I would, you probably will see some as well.
Okay. Can do. Grim Dark Relic Knights.
Grim Dark Relic Knights. No, but I mean, you can paint the cartoony stuff really well too. I've seen your SDE
Well, thank you.
in um, your SDE and even some of like Blood Bowl stuff you've got, like your Amazon stuff, can be pretty cartoony.
Well, thank you.
That's cool. Yippers.
Yeah.
I am almost done with these two models. So that's pretty exciting. I'm kind of in a rut painting-wise. I really haven't haven't painted anything since last Wednesday. And the other night I broke out the camera to paint some Anima Tactics for my channel. And I didn't even finish the model. I still have to finish painting the model, and in doing so, finish the series. But yeah, it's been kind of a little bit of a rut here for me, by my standards, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing all right. I've had a variety of things to paint. I haven't had much time to do it, and I still have things waiting in the wings that need to get finished. I'm still waiting on my Epic Infantry to show up from when I ordered them at Easter.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean they're coming from the UK, but still, that's a long time.
That's a long time, yeah.
But other than that, I got my Saga Saxons to finish. Got a whole other unit of Russian Pagan Rus warriors to finish. I have Cossacks to do for IHMN. Commission work and the new Blood Bowl team, and I don't know. I'm probably just going to burn the whole place to the ground. I mean,
nice.
There goes my insurance claim.
Yeah, that was just recorded live. Yeah, I hear you. I do have a few things, like really low priority stuff on backup, but it's, I'll get to it. The question is, will I get to it before or after the next wave of commissions come in? Because like even Samael, he's a low priority. He was from that demon stuff that we went in on together.
Right.
Finally getting around to painting him. And then, like I said, this guy is just kind of he's sadly probably only going to be a loner most of the time, or a backup. But I don't know. The one that I painted for myself, he has white hair, because I painted him like my Ultima Online character, and it's interesting with the blonde hair, kind of cool.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the blonde hair on mine, but yeah, I'm still trying to get through my base sets. I still have Vondrak Manor to paint, and I've finished the base colors on most of the Rocktop gang, but I can't quite bring myself to finish them. They've been sitting there staring at me wistfully.
I painted a second Vondrak, just the minion set for Yu Yao, and I don't own that set myself yet, but I will probably get around to getting myself some.
Oh, it's a great set.
It's a great set, and I want the heroes. I can't wait to play like Vondrak as a boss, because right now, like as it stands, most of my SDE demos, I'm using Roxor as the boss, because Starfire is cool, but I've been using a lot of Starfire before. It would be cool to have a third boss in there in the rotation.
Oh yeah, not to mention the fact that he can turn into a giant freaking bat.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you get Hypnotoads.
Yeah. Hypnotoads are cool.
These are all really good reasons to get behind the Vondrak set. So.
I just got to get that stuff painted before Forgotten King comes out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I don't know. I think we got time. Forgotten King is supposed to ship, like December of this year. So, and I don't mean to sound negative here, but I would at least give it a at least a couple months delay, so maybe February 2015.
That's fair.
If it showed up any sooner, then cool. But I don't know. There was a post about the late Kickstarters this week on SoCal Tabletop, and I was, as frustrating as Through the Breach has been for me, I don't know if the delay is the worst, is the part that I'm really upset about, because Arena Rex has delays, Relic Knights obviously, long delays there, and a lot of the other miniatures stuff, a lot of the miniatures Kickstarter stuff has delays. I'm not giving them excuses for it, but that's just, I don't know, it just seems par for the course.
Yeah, I've backed a lot of things on Kickstarter, and I have yet to see a reward from anything.
Really?
Yeah.
None of your Kickstarters have shipped?
Well, Arena Rex, granted, the ones that have finished more recently, I'm more forgiving. There's one I backed called Migration that looks really cool, and it's kind of a card game and sort of an exploration type thing, similar to Catan but more interesting. I love Catan, but this looks like actual fun. Do you have sheep? No, it's that one just finished, so I'm giving them. I mean, they're still well within their time frame, so I'm not bitching about them. But I backed a buddy of mine's movie, and I saw the premiere, and the movie was great. It was a 45-minute short film, 30, 45 minutes. But we were all promised DVDs, and I haven't received that yet.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, Through the Breach, where I'm just, oh God, the spelling errors. I promised myself.
Put it on eBay.
Oh, will I ever? I mean, the thing is, I promised myself that I would read those books until I found a spelling error.
Mm-hmm.
I made it to page 2 of one book and page 7 of the next. And I stopped, and I have not gone back.
There was an update that just went out for that.
I saw that, and it didn't reassure me.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I haven't read any of the updates for like the past maybe 5 months. It's like I'm almost annoyed because it's this reminder of something that I threw money at that I couldn't be less interested in at this point.
I know.
So,
I know.
So yeah, so the updates are almost frustrating for me. But yeah, that one's late. I have let's see. So far, for my Kickstarter stuff, the only stuff that I've got that was not only on time but a little early, the Table War stuff.
Cool.
The Table War mini cases. I got my mini cases a week before they promised we'd have them, which is fantastic. The Frontline Gaming mat we got right on time, which is incredible. Now, granted, there are no miniatures involved. There's some tooling involved and there's some production involved, but no physical miniatures and no rules. So those came in great. I piggybacked on Rory's Relic Knights, so obviously that's late. Arena Rex is late. Wrath of Kings, I had a brain fart and backed it for value. I'll be honest, I backed it with the intention of, you know what, those look like I could paint those pretty quick and I could probably turn them around in a hurry. So backed it with the expectation that somebody may be interested in buying painted Wrath of Kings, and trying to cash in on initial launch hype. So hard to say whether or not that will pan out. So it was kind of a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I think even if I broke even on Wrath of Kings, I think I'd be okay with that though, um, because then I would have at least the experience of painting a bunch of stuff.
Well, yeah. And
So,
remember, kids, no painting experience is a bad experience.
so yeah, I don't know. Miniatures Kickstarters are just late. It's just I don't know.
It was fun reading the comments.
I forgot a huge one. Um, and I'm gonna paint that very soon here because I'm into my stretch goals for myself. El Atomico, his first Kickstarter on the zombies and survivors,
Mm-hmm.
that went out on time. So there you go. There's a project with some miniatures to be sculpted and.
Well, yeah, but I don't. That's not exactly fair because El Atomico has great public support, and I mean he communicates with people and actually participates in discussion and shares updates. So that I mean that's not realistic. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Come on.
The one-man operation, the guy that's basically working in his spare bedroom,
Yeah.
hand sculpting, and then spin casting these miniatures, which, by the way, are fantastic quality. Fantastic quality. Yeah, and his communication was great the entire way, the entire Kickstarter. I mean, he was even just the other day he put out a YouTube video individually thanking backers of his current Kickstarter, which is the Dwarf Team. I think that's over now. I know it funded, which is fantastic, and he was already talking about plans for another set of models, which I'm really excited about. Do you know about his next set coming out?
No, what's he planning?
He is planning on doing a steampunk vampire hunter crew, which is basically, for like IHMN, because when we met him, that was one of the first things that I threw at him was, hey, check out IHMN. It's a great, for somebody that loves to sculpt miniatures, you might get some really good source material out of it. And apparently he's sculpting something that can be used for that game, so that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
And then he'll have, I think he said after that he'd be looking at another Blood Bowl team. So really good stuff ahead for him. And I know that guy is only going to get better and better at sculpting. So, we can all brag and say that we knew him before he got super famous.
Yeah, he's local, right?
What's that?
He's local, right?
Not exactly. He's like Fresno area.
Oh, it's...
But, close enough, I guess.
Yeah. And the guy has a lucha mask as his profile picture. I mean, that alone right there is reason to back.
Yeah, my initial draw was wasn't so much the zombie survivor stuff, because zombie survivor stuff, while cool, doesn't really stand out in the crowd. My initial draw to him was a game that he was trying to develop called El Atomico versus Los Zombies, which is basically a luchador with like a big booty chick in one arm and a fully automatic machine gun in the other arm, and a luchador mask. And that was the miniature.
That is the most awesome thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. If you go to his site, you can actually see the El Atomico miniature. And so when I saw his Kickstarter go up, I backed the Kickstarter, and then I started bugging him about, hey, is El Atomico ever going to come out? Because I would totally help kickstart that, because I love the idea. I want to paint that miniature. It just looks fantastic. And he said, yeah, that's something that he wants to eventually get up and put in the works and actually try to develop a game around. So yeah, really excited about El Atomico's stuff, and yeah, we'll see what he can come out with.
Very, very cool.
All right, so we are at our 2-hour mark, if you consider the first broadcast. And I don't know what kind of how's your progress going?
I have done a lot actually. I've finished all the bases on my Eldorado commission. It's difficult to see, but the lava bases.
Cool.
And so I've got all those done. And then for my Amazons, it's also difficult to see from where everything is, but I'll bring the thing closer. They've got all the teal color that I wanted.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see that. That's cool. Nice.
And I've been doing highlights here and there and elsewhere. So
cool.
Your stuff's looking good.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll. They're both of the miniatures that I was working on are done. So I am just gonna snap a photo of them and let them dry. And yeah, that's it. I'll tomorrow night I will get back to painting this guy on camera so that we can watch. He's actually almost done, as you can see. Really just need to do his hair and some more detail work on him, and paint his base in. But he's basically done, which is cool. So yeah, that's it. Any comments for our audience that was cool enough to hang out? Pretty quiet audience tonight. I don't know if I hope people were painting, but yeah. Any final comments here before we go off air? Yeah, not comments from the audience. What about you, Phil? Any final comments here?
No, I'm just thanks to everybody who watched or who will watch in the upcoming day or two, and as always, play it painted.
Awesome. All right, guys, have a good night.